In this video, we'll talk about position and margin. When we design web page, sometimes we need to control the position. For example, an image, it's on the top, on the bottom, left, or on the right. However, we need to assign some properties to the position. What's that? Here we have an example. This is a paragraph. So before we can control, say, how far the image from the paragraph actually, how far the paragraph from the top side or from the right side, we need to assign some properties to the position. In here, we assign as relative. So for the properties, we have several choices. The first is static. Static is default, means we do nothing. That's static. And second one will be relative. So let's say relative. What means relative? So let's say example. First, again, we use this structure. Think about, say, we have two paragraphs. For first paragraph, we assign an ID. And inside the paragraph, we have an image. And src equal to, I get two images from the Windows. You just make sure you means you get the code and the image should be in the same folder. Okay, make sure you get the name right. And we need to control the width. And the height. And then we need to close the paragraph. Close the paragraph, okay. Then do the same thing. I copy the code and get the second paragraph, but I change the ID on second. And also I change the image. Okay. So that's examples that this is very common sense, common situation. We have multiple images used for our website. Let's say what we get so far. We get something like this. Now we want to control the position of the image. So actually, we can control the position of the paragraph. But here we want to use position. So for first, we want to add some border for the paragraph. Why? Because we want to show the range of the paragraph. Like a red solid 2 pixel. So once we have this is the paragraph. We also want to control this. It's too wide. We can control the width of the paragraph. Maybe 100. Width. Pixel. Then say what do we get? Okay, something like this. Then now we want to control the position of the first paragraph. Remember for ID we use pounds and hash sign. So we use position. First we try relative. And we want to control it from the top will be 200 pixel. From the left will be 200 pixel. Then let's see what we get. Reload the code. So remember, this is paragraph. This is the DZ is the first paragraph. So now we move the 300 and 300 means from the top is 300, from left side is 300. However, the original space still reserved. It means the second image couldn't use the original space. So that's relative. Relative means we move the elements relative to its original position. So for the image, the original position will be on the top. So when we move from the original position, the original space is still reserved. That's relative. But we do control the position. We also can use absolute. What means absolute? The absolute is different. For example, here we use relative. If we change it to absolute, say this is relative. If we change to we reload as absolute, you can say the second image can use the original space. Means when we use absolute, we don't reserve the original space. So that's the difference. Again, you can say this is absolute. So that's the difference. We also have something called fixed. What's fixed? First, look at this example. This is really absolute. So if we reduce the size of the window like this, we couldn't see this on the bottom image, but we can scroll down. We still can display it. That's absolute. If we change to fixed here, then what will happen? Let's reload the code. So if we reduce the window size, you can say we don't get the scroll bar. So because this is fixed on this position, the desired image is fixed on this position. So even though we reduce the size of the window, we don't have the scroll bar. So that is the fixed. So when we control the position of some elements, we can use position, but we need to assign properties. Could be relative, could be absolute, could be fixed. And then we assign some number, how far from the top, how far from the left. So that's about position. We also can add some margin to some elements. Think about in this example, for the second one, we should pound sign with the hash sign, and we want to add some margin. Okay, we want 20 pixel. Save it. So this is the second paragraph. This is we do nothing. If we add some margin, we reload the code. Can you see the difference? That is 20 pixel. So means we can add some margin to the paragraph. We add the margin second is here to the paragraph. We can control, like say for different side, you can control different size of margin. It's okay. Or like I say, in our case, if we use one number, means that all the four sides has the same margin. If you can distinguish, you can use separate, like a control different side with different margin. That's okay. Sometimes we can use auto. What's auto? Let's say this example. So in this example, we control this second paragraph as 220 margin. If we change this as auto, like a margin, we change it as auto. Save it, and then reload the code. You can see the image automatically move to the center. So when we use the auto, that means we give the control to the browser. Browser can decide what is the best position for this image. So that's why the image automatically move to the center, because the browser think is a good place for this image. So that is auto. Remember, we once learned some padding. So for example, in this example, we have for margin. Let's say we have for 20 pixel margin. How about that we also have some padding? So what's the difference? So let's load the code. You can say when we add the margin, margin is outside the border. The red line is the border. Margin is outside the border, but the padding is inside the border. So can you find the difference? So that's about for our coding. That's about the position. We can use fixed, we can use relative, we can use absolute. We can control how far from the top, how far from the left. We also can put some border, control the size of the border. Like say here, we can put some margin or put some padding. That's about this video.